On June 30, 2025, the Trump administration delivered a sweeping verdict. Harvard University had violated federal civil rights law by failing to protect its Jewish students from harassment and anti-Semitic abuse on campus. In a sharply worded letter sent to Harvard President Alan Garber, federal investigators accused the university of being, at times, deliberately indifferent, and in other cases, a willful participant in allowing anti-Semitism to take root. The report cites disturbing examples. Jewish students were spat on and assaulted. Some hid their kippas out of fear, or concealed their religious identity altogether to avoid social isolation. Anti-Semitic imagery spread openly. Stickers showed a Star of David fused with a dollar sign. Israeli flags were defaced with swastikas. Investigators described a weeks-long protest encampment that allegedly disrupted learning and made Jewish and Israeli students feel unsafe. In their view, Harvard's failure to act enabled what the letter called a racial hierarchy within the university, one that, they claimed, elevated identity politics over individual rights. Now, the White House is threatening to cut off all federal funding, up to $800 million in grants and support, unless Harvard enacts immediate reforms. This follows an earlier freeze on $2.6 billion in research funding. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated bluntly, "If you break federal law, you should not be receiving federal tax dollars." The letter even went as far as to suggest that perhaps operating without federal privileges might spur a return to true excellence at Harvard. But this confrontation didn't start last week. The clash between Harvard and the Trump administration has been brewing since before Trump returned to office. Early in his new term, the president demanded that universities dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) offices and crack down on pro-Palestinian protests. Harvard publicly refused. What followed was a broad and aggressive campaign, visa restrictions for international students, attempts to revoke the school's tax-exempt status, and now, the threat of total financial isolation. In April, Harvard sued the federal government, calling the funding freeze unconstitutional and demanding the restoration of over $2.2 billion. The university rallied its alumni and received public support from more than 50 colleges and academic organizations. Their message was clear: if they can do this to Harvard, they can do it to any university. Ironically, just 10 days before the June 30 announcement, President Trump had hinted at a possible settlement. In a social media post, he praised Harvard for its cooperation and said a historic deal might be imminent. But those negotiations appear to have collapsed over key sticking points. A senior official said, "The president won't accept empty promises. Harvard hasn't lived up to its end of the bargain." Meanwhile, Columbia University, also under investigation for similar issues, has opted for quieter negotiations. If successful, it could become a model for other schools to follow. But Harvard has chosen a more confrontational path. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, don't forget to subscribe. We cover stories where power, politics, and institutions collide. That brings us to the heart of the matter. Is this a genuine civil rights enforcement? Or is it part of a broader political strategy? Legally, the Trump administration is operating under Title V of the Civil Rights Act, which bars discrimination in federally funded programs. The report lays out specific incidents that many would agree merit serious concern. But the scope and style of the government's response go far beyond traditional enforcement. This isn't just about policy compliance. It's about leverage. The administration is using every tool available, financial, legal, diplomatic, to push universities into accepting a new vision of campus governance. For Harvard, the choice is stark: accept federal oversight or risk becoming an independent institution in both name and budget. At stake is not just one university's future, but a fundamental question: who gets to define what safety, discrimination, and academic freedom mean in the modern university? Some see this as a necessary reckoning. Others see it as a political assault on elite academia. Either way, Harvard is now a symbol, either of overdue reform, or of a new kind of state intervention. This conflict touches everything: identity politics, protest culture, institutional autonomy, and federal power. And because it's Harvard, the stakes are global. What happens next could redraw the boundaries between government and academia. If the administration succeeds, other universities may fall in line. If Harvard prevails, it could galvanize resistance. But one thing is already clear: the collision between political power and academic freedom has moved out of the shadows. And neither side seems ready to back down. This is not just a funding dispute. It's a battle over who controls the future of higher education, and what values will shape the next generation of leaders. For more deep dive analysis like this, hit subscribe and join us as we unpack the forces shaping our world, one conflict at a time.